So you want to do a book tour, huh? Well, today I'm going to share with you the 5 things I learned from traveling across Canada on my homecoming tour this past summer. I'm really excited to share this with you because when I first started out to plan my book tour, there was not a lot of information out there. In fact, a lot of the information I found was pretty generic. Contact some bookstores, make sure you get a PR person, hire a publicist. I did none of those things. In fact, what I learned early on was that because there wasn't a lot of direction or information about how to do it outside of authors that go through traditional publishing routes, is that I could create it however the hell I wanted to. And so that's exactly what I did, and it was absolutely awesome. My friend Aroha and I drove across Canada starting in July and finishing up at the end of August. And it was an amazing adventure, but I definitely learned some things along the way that I want to share with you today. So that way, if you are an aspiring author, photographer, speaker, what have you, looking to do a tour of your own, this might just give you some guidance that goes a little bit deeper than connect with your local bookstores. So the very first thing that I learned, as I mentioned already, is that your book tour can look like anything you want it to. There are no rules. When I first started out, I thought it had to be it had to look a very specific way for it to be taken seriously as a book tour event. And what I mean by that is the very first event I hosted here in Winnipeg, my hometown. I rented out a big venue. I had books on hand. I scripted the whole thing. People sat on very uncomfortable chairs for about 2 hours. I had a backdrop for selfies. I had art projects. I just felt like it had to be entertaining for people for the 2 hours. And what we realized as we were driving to the next city after that is that that might work for some people, but that isn't how people know me. And the fact is that a lot of people that come to my in-person events know me from being online. And who I am online is somebody that likes to ad-lib and share fun facts that just pop into my brain when it happens. I like to be very off the cuff and sprinkle in some laughter during the more heavy times, and that's not something I can script really well. And so by the time we got to the second venue in Calgary, I had removed a bit of the structure of the script, but I still kept to it a bit. And then by the time we got to Kelowna, I took even more away, and by the end of the event I was just like sitting on the floor shooting the shit with people after I'd done my reading portion. And that's what I realized by the third event, that I had been trying to create the book tour like I thought it had to be, instead of thinking about what makes it fun for me. And what makes it fun for me and how I like to show up is wearing really fun outfits, being super casual with my people, being able to have discourse and discussion, and then find readings in my paragraphs or poems or prose in my books that respond to their specific situations, and to be able to help heal those specific people. I prefer intimate group settings versus large group settings. I loved when we were in Kelowna, my friend Brina, who owns Bear by Brina, let us use her studio, which is also an Airbnb, so it's in a house, and we all just like sat on these really comfy couches and just basically shot the shit for like 2 hours, which was so fun. And we got rid of a lot of the like high maintenance stuff that we had in that first event. But I wouldn't have known that had I not done that first event the way that I did. And so I think that's really important for you when you're envisioning what you want your tour to look like. Don't base it on what other people have done. Instead, reflect on what makes it enjoyable for you. Do you like big groups? Do you like small groups? Do you like cool open venues? Do you like small intimate things? Do you want to be hosted in somebody's backyard, their living room, or do you want to rent out a theater? All of these things really go into creating the experience and the feeling that you want to have during your event. So that would be my advice for the first thing, is don't go off of what you think it has to be in order to be a legitimate event or tour. Instead, think about, what do I want this tour to be? And who knows, you might blow people's mind and introduce them to an entirely different way of doing things. All right, the second thing that I learned on this tour was to have a budget. So I will be the first to admit that I am not the most budget conscious gal anyways. And my brain does a very good job of glossing over the cost of things in lieu of the feeling of things. And so when I dreamed big for this tour, I convinced myself it really wasn't going to cost me that much, because I will work with people that I already know to let me borrow their studio spaces, and I will drive the Tesla so I don't have to worry about gas. Not realizing that, yeah, the Tesla we drove for the first half, but the second half I would have to fly to London, Ontario and drive Aroha's truck. And then not only that, because there was 2 of us in the car, I'd have to pay for meals for 2 of us, plus snacks along the way. Plus, we would have to pay for hotels and motels along the way. Plus, we would have to get things printed, pre-order books, carry all these things along the way. And I definitely didn't have a budget. And I will be honest and say that this tour, this whole cross-Canada tour overall, cost me anywhere between $10,000 to $15,000 this summer. Let's just say my investments are looking a little weak right now as a result of this tour. So if I was to do a tour again, once the finances pick back up again, I will most certainly be doing a budget for sure. The other thing is, I think I charged a minimal amount because I wanted to get as many people as I could at these events, even though I like small groups. So I charged like $30 a ticket, and then of course Eventbrite takes a cut. But I didn't want to charge like Taylor Swift prices for tickets yet, because I just wanted to see if this thing was possible. And most book readings you go to, they're actually free because they're hosted by a bookstore or put on by the publishing company themselves. But because I basically bootstrapped this whole thing by myself, it definitely came out of my money. But it was worth it, to be honest, and I'll get to that at the end. Now, the third thing I learned, and this is going to be very, very important for you, is that I don't recommend doing your book tour in the summer. Sweet baby Jesus, do not do it in the summer, and there's a few reasons why. Number one, everything, and I mean everything, is way more expensive. Literally everything. Hotels, food costs, gas prices, even just park passes to get through locations. Everything is more expensive in the summer. And secondly, people are not in their cities a lot of the time. Like the people that follow me, if I went there because they're like, well, I live in Calgary and I follow you and I'd love to see you, I show up in the summertime, well, they've just taken off to go somewhere else on a vacation. So people aren't they're very scattered in the summer, which means it's harder for them to commit to things, especially things that don't cost a lot of money or are, a one-off thing. My recommendation would be, if you are going to do a tour and you do live in places like Canada or the northern states where you don't have, great driving weather for a long amount of time, I would say your best bet would be to go from like August to October versus June to August. I just think it would be a lot easier. If I'm being honest, that was one of the biggest lessons I learned. Every time somebody's like, oh, so like, how was it? Don't do a tour during the summer. Never do a tour during the summer. That was the biggest lesson I learned. All right, so reason number 4 is that I wouldn't recommend doing 13 cities. Or trying to do 13 cities right off the hop. Instead, my recommendation would be to pick 3 to 4 cities that you want to visit and are excited about. Sell those tickets out first and let that hype fuel the sale of tickets for other locations later on. Because as I was going through and creating the ticket sales for 13 different cities, it felt really slow and like there wasn't a lot of people, and it was disheartening sometimes because certain places would have very few, and a lot of times it was the places that I knew were going to cost me the most amount of money to attend that I only had maybe 2 people buy tickets for. And so if I was to do it again, I would definitely start with fewer cities first and then add more cities later on. So that is my recommendation for sure on that. All right, and then the last and final thing that I learned on this tour is to just do the thing. I do not regret spending $10,000 to $15,000 and taking 2 months off this summer to travel across this beautiful country of mine to speak to people that I've only known online in person. And I don't regret pushing myself out of my comfort zone to learn how to do things like press releases, create contact sheets in spreadsheets where I have to contact locations and call people and email people to see if I can be in their spaces. And I don't regret reaching out to my boudoir community to see if they can host me in different spaces and introduce me to their communities. And I don't regret traveling across this country with my beautiful friend Aroha and laughing and crying and basically giving her therapy for the entire 2 months that we were together driving. I don't regret any of it. And it just reminded me of the fact that things can be scary and hard and not make logical sense, but that doesn't mean they're not worth doing, because what I've learned on this tour will only make the next tour better. And I hope that anybody else out there that wants to do a tour or put together some event where they travel around, that this information is going to help them. But I could not have given this information had I not done it and seen what happened at the end of it. So I will never be sad that I did this, and the lesson is to not have any regrets. Back in 2020 when I first released the Geode Theory, I wanted to do a book tour, but obviously there was a little thing called the pandemic that prevented me from doing so. And then 2,200 characters or less came out, and I just, the publishing process was really gross. And I was in a really squidgy time in my life, and the energy that was around that book just wasn't great. So to be able to bring those books on this tour and talk about them, to see how I've changed from writing the Geode Theory and 2,200 characters and now Homecoming, Tales of Travel, Discovery, and Self-Acceptance, has been amazing. And to be able to share my stories and have them held with such love and respect and have people see themselves mirrored in my words, I can't even put that into words. I can't. It is unparalleled to anything I've experienced before. So if you have something that it's been burning you to like do it, but all these fear comes up, nobody's gonna book, nobody's gonna come, what if nobody likes it, what if I do it wrong, what if I don't make money? It doesn't matter at the end of the day. It doesn't matter. You're going to learn something no matter what. And if I'm being honest, in 2017, I wanted to do this, a cross-country tour. Back then it was more boudoir focused, but the idea was that I would just travel across Canada and spread positivity and self-love and help people with body image as I drove across the country in a van that I would call the booty bus. And I even went so far as to buy the van, but then I chickened out. I didn't do it. because my brain was like, oh, you can't do it. You can't drive across the country. Nobody's gonna buy tickets. Nobody's gonna want that. Nobody's gonna whatever. And I ended up selling the van and not going at all. So to be able to finally say, you know what? F it. I'm going across this country, and I'm going to just, whoever shows up is meant to be there. Whoever I meet along the way is meant to meet me, and whoever is ready to hear these words will hear these words that I have to say. And I don't regret it for a second. It was amazing. So this is my encouragement to you. If there's something you've been wanting to do, I want you to start thinking about how can you take action on it today. For me, I procrastinated because of all those fears doing this thing, and all it was saying, what is one thing I can start to do every day to get me closer to this tour? The first thing was just creating a spreadsheet of places that I might want to go. Second day was looking at bookstores. It was just chipping away at it slowly until it became a reality, and now it's over. And I am so thankful to everyone that attended the homecoming tour and was part of this experience, because it changed me for sure. So go forth, do your things, learn from it what you can, and share that knowledge with the world. All right? Thank you for being here, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!
Diamonds in the sky, below my feet is gold, and I'm never gonna leave this place, never wanna leave this place. Like a scene from a different life, like a dream that will never die. I never wanna leave this place, never gonna leave this place.